Gaining the high ground. The broadcast begins in 10 seconds. WDBC Internet Television is on. I am an avatar for Michael P. Borgia. The broadcast, originating from deep behind enemy lines, is brought to you by dailyborg.com. Conservative politics for the thoughtful. Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. In teaching military tactics, instructors teach that the best place to be is on the high ground. In ground fighting, martial arts instructors teach that the best position is to be on top of your opponent. In the past 3 weeks, we've watched a dispirited and disorganized Republican Party shrewdly fight its way back to the high ground, and befuddled Democrats wondering just how it was Republicans got on top of them. We'll tell you how when the broadcast continues in a moment.
I didn't see you come in.
Yeah, most people don't.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm depression, and I've come for you.
I'm not depressed.
Oh, you're not? What about schizophrenia?
No.
Anxiety disorders?
Uh-uh.
Eating or mood disorders?
No and no.
Oh, my mistake. It's next Tuesday that you lose your job and your boyfriend leaves you.
You say you'd give your right arm to be there for your family? Here's your chance to prove it. Have your blood pressure checked and control it to lower your risk of heart attack and stroke.
Democrats had everything going their way just 3 short weeks ago. They'd just celebrated Barack Obama's second inauguration. Republicans were on the run on all fronts. The talk among the Beltway intelligentsia was not just of how might Republicans be relevant again, but of whether or not they would survive. Democrats successfully enacted massive tax hikes. Obama himself proudly proclaimed the era of big government was back. Then January ended and Democrats found the political weather much colder in February. Down and out Republicans now suddenly have the high ground. How did they get there? Kristen Jones is here to help sort it out.
Michael, thank you. Getting out from where Republicans were in January requires 2 things. A shrewd escape, but it also required Democrats overplaying their position. Both things happened in the last days of January. Facing a debt ceiling crisis that the public was not eager to repeat, Republicans in the House crafted an innovative short-term solution that deferred the crisis until the summer. Instead of raising the debt ceiling, Republicans simply passed a bill that defers it for 3 months, allowing the government to borrow such money as is needed to meet appropriations requirements. The effect of this was to reorder the sequence of crises facing the Congress to an order that allows Republicans to put the focus on an area where the voters are on their side: spending.
A new Fox News poll that came out on Friday showed that more than 80% of Americans disagree with the president on whether or not the nation has a spending problem. But spending is now the focus of the debate, not the debt ceiling. And the American people are solidly behind the Republicans on that issue. Democrats, expecting to fight the second battle of the debt ceiling, now find themselves in the same position Republicans were in 2 months ago over taxes. Back then, massive tax hikes were coming that Republicans did not have the votes to stop. Now Democrats are facing massive spending cuts that they don't have the power to stop, thanks to sequestration.
When Obama and his aides proposed sequestration, they believed the defense cuts it would mandate were so onerous that Republicans would cut any deal to avoid those cuts. Democrats were expecting Republicans to simply submit, rather than allow those cuts to happen. That was the Democrats' big mistake that allowed Republicans to slide out of trouble and into the high ground. With the public solidly favoring spending cuts, Republicans instead embrace sequestration. Putting their political capital where their mouths are, Republicans are able to successfully defend sequestration because they're willing to give up their own political sacred cow, the defense budget, in order to get spending reductions. Democrats, meanwhile, are already ranting about children going hungry and are increasingly off balance. This week, it was Obama who blinked, demanding another short-term delay in sequestration.
Speaker Boehner saw the blink and immediately told Obama that there would be no short-term deal. In fact, The House responded by passing a bill requiring the president to send to Congress a plan to get the budget to balance and to certify how long it would take to get there. The bill, of course, will go nowhere in the Senate. So pressure to stop the sequestration builds on Democrats, with Republicans delightfully enjoying the view from the high ground. Fiscal issues are not the only ones on which Democrats find themselves suddenly in a disadvantageous position. On Election Day, Barack Obama won more than 70% support from Hispanic voters. The Democrats owned immigration reform. Not anymore.
Senator John McCain, whatever you may think of his conservative bona fides, is a shrewd politician. McCain, seeing opportunity in the electoral defeat, moved to open lines of communication with an old enemy, Senator Chuck Schumer of New York. The two men buried the hatchet, and not in each other's backs. Together, they crafted a compromise to preserve the Senate filibuster. That in turn led them to discuss what McCain was really interested in: immigration reform. Once the door was open to crafting a proposal, it did not take long for McCain to draw in the man who may well become the face of the Republican Party in the next 4 years, Senator Marco Rubio.
The three senators, joined by 5 others, presented a plan that will document all illegals in the nation, require that they plead guilty to a crime, pay a fine and back taxes, then enter the line for permanent legal status from the end of the line. But that journey to legal status cannot begin until Republicans get something they have long desired: a secure Mexican border. And McCain got Schumer to agree to it. Democrats, of course, wanted to put their own Hispanic face on the bill, so they pulled the obscure Senator Robert Menendez off the backbenches. But a funny thing happened to Menendez on his way to immigration reform.
Within days, Menendez was embroiled in scandal over free airplane rides and possibly having solicited sex from underage prostitutes. Menendez now is no longer fighting for immigration reform, but for his very political life. If the prostitution charge holds up, he will likely be forced out of the Senate. That leaves Rubio as the sole Hispanic voice on immigration reform and the Republicans squarely in the driver's seat. Meanwhile, Democrats made yet another mistake. They appear to have badly overreached on gun control. Obama has made the issue a centerpiece of his second-term agenda. But now it appears that the assault weapons ban renewal sponsored by Senator Dianne Feinstein will not only not get enough votes to break a filibuster, it likely cannot even muster a simple majority. The Senate will likely never vote on it.
Thanks, Kristen. 3 weeks ago, Democrats had Republicans pinned to the mat, down and out. But now the positions have changed, and Democrats on issues from immigration reform to the budget to gun control suddenly find themselves lying on the mat with their opponents sitting on top of them. And they still don't quite understand how they got there. So now that they're on top, what should Republicans do with their newly won high ground? We'll be back with closing thoughts when the broadcast continues in a moment.
Yours?
No,
My mother said she found it in your closet.
I don't know. One of the guys must have...
Must have what?
Look, Dad, it's not...
Where did you get it?
Dad,
Answer me. Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
Parents who use drugs have children who use drugs.
Patty, I boldly went to socialsecurity.gov, and it's out of this world.
Socialsecurity.gov is a website for everybody.
Even teenagers?
Absolutely. Young people can help their grandparents with retiring online or getting extra help with their Medicare prescription drug costs.
So really, everyone of all ages should go to socialsecurity.gov.
Boldly go.
3 weeks ago, pundits were wondering how many concessions Republicans might make before finding their footing again. The answer appears to be none. By pushing the debt ceiling to the end of the line and putting federal spending up front, Republicans swiftly and deftly gained the high political ground, the so-called top position. Now what will they do with it? On immigration reform, Republicans have already won unconditional surrender from Charles Schumer on their top priority, border control. They have Democrats pinned to the mat with no place to go on sequestration. And Democrats have made a huge whiff on gun control, which is a third political rail that carries as much voltage as Social Security. So now that Republicans have gained top position, what should they do with it? We say it's time for some political ground and pound. You have been assimilated.